myself, I don't care what you want or don't want me to be. Said I'ma make it, and when I gon' make it, and all of my brothers gon' eat.
Salam, كيفكم؟ أخباركم شنو? Welcome to the Distant Relative Podcast. This is Amro. And today, we have a special guest for our first ever podcast, first ever episode. For me, I take pride in having friends, family, cousins, everyone who are doing things with their life. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to highlight Sudanese people outside of Sudan who are just living their life as regular people doing their thing and seeing how their life is. We have superheroes and celebrities and people to look up to in our own society that we don't really need to look that far away. And hopefully with this podcast, you can see that. Now, I want you to think of me as that relative. You know, when you go to an event, a wedding, أو يكون عيد ولا حاجة, كون قاعد كده جابوك أهلك لبيت ناس ما بتعرفهم, and you're just like, what am I doing here? And then you have that one cousin that just walks into the house and you look at them and you know, okay, it's going to be fun. We're going to hang out. We're going to have a great night. And then when everyone goes back home, it's back to normal. So again, welcome to the Distant Relative Podcast. And today, I actually have a very special guest who is my actual cousin. And I'm just going to let him introduce himself because I'm never going to do it justice. But everyone, please welcome Mr. MK, Mohamed Khalid. Woo!
I didn't know if you're gonna do like a drum roll or something, you know, but thank you for having me. Hello everyone. Glad to be here on the first ever episode of the Distant Relative Podcast. And it kind of resonates a lot too because we are distant relatives doing this virtually. Thank you for having me. And you know, like I said to you off air, like introductions are not an easy thing to do because imposter syndrome, you know, you don't know what to say about yourself.
Absolutely. I think it's easier for me to like say, oh, here's my guest, Mohamed.
Yeah, that's what it is. And just side note, then if you said special guest, don't ever say special guest for the rest of your shows. Khalas, that's it. From now on, best guest. That's it. You don't say anything else.
خلاص بعد ده. This episode will be called Special Episode with Special Guest.
La. Everybody, I'm sure everyone you bring on here is going to be special. I'm excited for this. My name is Mohamed, everyone. Also known as MK. Amro and I cousins, you know, so I guess it's only fitting for the first episode. And you know, like I said to you, I don't like introductions, so I think we'll let the conversation flow and we'll let people, you know, get to know me as we proceed into the episode. So yeah,
absolutely,
let's get it.
Absolutely. So let me just play it off. Start it off in the easiest way possible. So a quick thing about Mohamed is that Mohamed is from Australia and now is in Canada. I think you see the picture that I'm drawing. The man from down under going all the way up above. See, I came up with that like 5 minutes ago and I was like, let me just stay quiet and use it later.
Yes, I see you writing down stuff.
Oh yeah. And it hits the theme of our episode today because what we want to talk about is kind of your life story. And as a Sudanese person who has traveled a lot, how was your journey been like? And you know, with moving a lot comes a lot of coping and a lot of what's the word that I'm looking for? Maybe cultural assimilating,
adjustments.
Yeah. Absolutely, adjustments. There's the word.
Yeah.
So one thing that us as Sudanese people that we go through on a daily basis is adjusting to the society that we're in. Then a lot of us move. أنا في أمريكا. You're in Canada. Most of my friends are not in Sudan. Yani all over the world. Whether it's when they were born, where they were born, or where they moved to later. But it's one thing that we all go through whether we're young, old, our parents, or the next generations, is that we have to adapt to where we are and live as part of that society as well as being Sudanese. For I couldn't think of a better person who can kind of share some insight on that and how it shaped you to be. I mean, to be honest with you guys, this is one of the most impressive people I know. And I'm not saying this for praise. I'm saying this because I told him this in person and on the phone many times. But I'll let you take off. Just give us a quick synopsis on where was Mohamed born, where did he go to, and how did he end up in Australia?
Sure. Well, thank you again for the praise. I never know how to take these things, but I
I feel you.
appreciate it. But I appreciate it. Yeah. So I was born in Sudan, and I lived in Sudan for I guess, my early childhood. I lived in Sudan till I was about 6 years old. Um, till about 6 years old, and um, as I guess most of us in the diaspora, like, your family decides to leave and to look for a better life, and and it never makes sense in the beginning, because when you're young, when you don't really know, three, you don't really have a choice. Your family is going, you have to go. So we moved to
Mhm.
Syria when I was 6 years old, and we stayed in Syria for about 2 years. And originally, being that young, you kind of you don't know much. You don't really understand much, but it definitely has an effect on you, because it's the first time you're exposed to different people, different surroundings. Everything you knew for that initial part of your life, is changed and is different, and you kind of have to just go with what's happening.
What was the first thing that you noticed as a kid in Syria that was not in Sudan? Let's say, I'm assuming that in that age group انت كنت يا دوب بديت مدرسة let's say in Sudan وبعد
Yeah,
ذاك مشيت سوريا, right?
yeah. I did Sana Ula, like I did grade one in Sudan, and yeah, and then we moved to Syria, and then like the I guess the first thing was, you realize that everybody looks different to you. Like, people look different. They sound different. So to me, they sounded funny the way they spoke, but but
Mhm.
but not realizing that I'm the one who's not from there. Like, because I'm growing up in Sudan, and I'm just learning how to speak, and like the words that I hear, I'm used to, are different to what I'm hearing now. Um, you know, just like physical appearances. People look different. Food is a little bit, like, it's all little bits and pieces that you don't really realize. Like, and I think for the most part, when I was in Syria, I was very sheltered. Being 6 years old, you can't expect all the freedom in the world, obviously. Like,
No.
it was school, home, whatever my family went, I went, type thing.
Mhm.
So I don't particularly think I fully digested, that move, just because of the age that I was in. But
That's fair enough. Yeah.
now, later on in life, and I'll get to that. I can see how much all the moving has affected me, my decision making, my drive, my way of thinking. Like, it's affected. It shaped a lot of my personality, and to be able to achieve the things that I have set out, in the
Mhm.
past.
واصلا نحن كناس يعني as human beings, most of our learning is through experiences.
Mhm.
You have to put your hand in that hot pot or تابش المكوى عشان to know how hot it is.
Speaking of
بعد ذاك
makwa, I burnt myself with the makwa, so that's a pretty good analogy.
there.
analogy.
I'll tell you one thing. I have so many friends that have scars that are so random, and when I ask them, they go like, "It's either makwa or aforo."
Yeah, wallah, في Sudan, bro, like, you don't understand. Because by then, like me, when I was the first boy born, right, in both sides
Mm.
of the family, so I can get away with a lot, you know, and that's one thing. And I was a very curious child, yani, and I think that's the only thing from my childhood that's left in my
Oh,
adulthood now. I'm still a just super curious person, and I always want to know things and touch things and try this, and and I only learn by, I guess, like, throwing
experience.
myself in the deep end,
Yeah, I think my family learned that the hard way. I
Mm.
remember my uncle when I was like young. He was like trying to tell me curiosity killed the cat,
Mm.
trying to tell me the meaning of that, and I took it way too literally, and
Yeah,
I thought I was gonna die.
why does Sudani, like, babas or uncles, you know,
I
they,
thought I
they
was,
they love that quote, bro. I know my dad used to just kill me with that quote.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Wallahi al-azim. And yeah, I thought I was gonna die the whole time. So that put me in a tough space. He had to like really back and be like, "Listen, child, let me
Chill out,
explain it to
yeah.
you like a child, which is what you are."
Yeah.
Okay, so going back from so 6 years old, you're in Syria. The whole world changed.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I can't really. It doesn't make sense for me to ask you
Mm.
what changed you when you came back from Syria. So, from Syria, you said you stayed there for 2 years.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
So after that, we after 2 years, we moved back to Sudan. But it was just me, my mom, and my sister, and my dad stayed, and he kept traveling, I guess, and going to different places, and just searching for that next opportunity, I guess. We went back to Sudan, and then going back to Sudan was kind of different because now it's like everything I knew. My perception has shifted now because like I got used to this new place, and I got like, there was Syria. It used to snow in Syria, so like for me that was like wow, like that was crazy seeing snow for the first time and something I never knew about. Now I'm going back to Sudan, so
Did
it's
you
like
go to Sudan with the Syrian accent?
I and that's the problem. I always went back to somewhere with the accent. um. So yeah, we went back to Sudan, and then funny story about going back to Sudan. We weren't meant to stay back for too long. My dad said to my mom, I think it was going to be like 6 to 8 months or something. That would stay, and then he's gonna send for us to come to wherever
Go.
he is, basically. So when we went back, I remember my auntie. She's a teacher at a all girls school. So she said, "Well, Mohammed's just staying home. I'm gonna just take him to school with me." So I was the only guy in an all girls school. Right? I think I was like 8. Right. So I did like 6 months
Oh.
in that school, just and it was at the time it was like you're like damn, like what the hell is this, like so like for me even then having to make new friends was different because now I'm at an all girls school like type thing, right? So and it's funny, Sudan is just a funny place, bro. Like imagine you just take somebody because your auntie's a teacher, fully enroll you into all girls school. Like it's meant to be an all girls school for a reason. I can, I guess, being 8 year old, like how like it's harmless at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but it's so confusing.
no, but it's crazy, bro. Do you see my life is just interesting, bro? Like it's like this. I know that was very vague. Like my life is funny. Like is what I meant to say. Like it's just you kind of get thrown into different places, different times, and you don't really have much of a say into it. So I did the 6 months at the school, and then we moved from from Sudan. My dad moved to Ghana, West Africa.
I'm just realizing that 6 months is a whole school semester.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, let's go to Ghana. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, no, no.
So we moved to Ghana, and we lived in Ghana for just a little bit over a year. And Ghana is kind of like, you know, where a lot of things changed in terms of just, you know, starting to shape, and form a lot of memories and stuff like that. Like, I mean, even going back to Sudan from Syria, I still had a lot of memories from that trip in Sudan.
Mm.
And I remember like, you know, the friends that I remember my first friend, like I said to you, Ahmed Mubarak,
The
we used
fact
to,
that you still remember the name is
yeah, I know,
amazing to me.
he lived right across the street from me. We used to walk to school together, come back home together, and I came back, and he was still going to the same school that we started off together, but now I'm going to this all girls school, and then he would like make fun of me, and we'll come back to like in front of the house and play together, and and you being 8, you're like, boys, oh, you go to all girls school, they laugh at you, but you know like
And like,
imagine if that was a 15-year-old, it'd be a completely different story, because
oh,
like,
you'll be the most popular kid in
of
the
course,
area.
of course. So yeah, so then we went to Ghana, and then Ghana was, I guess, like out of all the places I lived, it's probably one of my favorite places. I had a great time in Ghana. I learned a lot, I guess, because I started making friends there.
Mm.
I have a lot of memories because you know I became at that age where I can understand, I guess, a little bit more, and I can realize a little bit more, and I started realizing that we we have moved back to Sudan, and then we have moved to Ghana. And
Mm.
again, it was just a new experience because now I had to learn English,
Oh, wow.
because school was in English. So like now all the you don't really learn English that young, and whatever. They kind of start teaching to you in middle school, whatever the case may be. I had to learn English because I had to go to school in English,
How old were
and
you at that time?
9.
9 years old.
Yeah.
So that's like third grade, I would say, the very
Yeah.
least. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we started going to school there, and my best friend and my sister Mona, like because I would go out, but still my mom would be reserved about us going out and stuff like that, or like just making friends outside. But me and my sister used to just play together all the time. She's 4 years younger than me,
Yeah.
and we would just do the madness, and then my dad would also like at that time, like in Ghana, my dad he had a pretty good like position in terms of work, and he was very much around in terms of like taking us out, like showing us. And we used to go to this Al Badi beach, was called. We used to go there every single Sunday. We used to go there, take like
Wow.
food, take drinks, whatever, and then go sit at the beach, and then just have like every Sunday, us and another Sudani family would go and sit there. So it was very, very fond memories. Like it was just a beautiful place to live. And then and then after Ghana,
actually, I'm sorry. I just want to ask you, because you brought up something very, very interesting about your experience in Ghana that kind of caught my eye. Now, let me give you the context. We're the same age. Our sisters are the same age, so it's the exact same age difference.
Yeah.
And just to compare and contrast, obviously, now we lived in UAE our whole life.
Yeah.
My sister and I were stuck together just the same way as you guys were. And I just found it interesting because my sister and I's relationship as kids was completely different than that, where you cannot leave us together in the same room. We will fight.
My brother, I'm getting there. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Because we will fight like it was like no tomorrow. But if you put us outside of our own environment, it's only us against the world.
I see you.
So that's why I wanted to, like, that actually caught my eye, because at a young age, you're very more combative with your siblings rather than being cool with them per se. But yeah, go ahead.
It's funny because my sister always says this, like she was a very she was very quiet and miskina, but me, I was just a devil child, bro. Like all the stories that I hear, like I can sit here and tell you stories and you wouldn't believe how bad I was. Like, don't be fooled by how calm I am now, because I got it all out of my system in the younger age. And I'm glad I did, because I feel like if I was who I was then and now, I think I'll be in jail or something right now, because I just
just honestly, a menace to society.
It was bad, bro. Like I set my dad's car on fire in Sudan. Like I did crazy things, And Muhim,
revisit car situation.
But
keep going.
Like in Ghana, because like me and my sister will play, but I would always be the one who messes up. I would always be the one who does something. Like one time, my mom did her hair in braids, and I said to her, "Hey, let's cut your braids." And I got scissors and I started cutting her braids, And she goes to my mom with the braids in her hands, and she's like, "Look, Mohamed cut my hair." And she's like, "Why did you?" And she's like, "Well, he wanted to do it, so I let him do it," type thing. So it was just like stupid things like that, right?
Oh my!
So
as an adult, just imagining what kind of like what would that make you feel? Oh Lord,
it's crazy, right? So and I remember like she would never actually do anything. I would always be the one doing something, but for some reason my mom would punish both of us, and I never understood why, right? So like, and when I asked her in recent years, I'm like, "Why did you hit her as well?" And she goes, "I hit her because I don't want her to do what you did," And I'm just
later
like,
on,
this makes no sense. But okay, like she didn't do anything. Like funny story is my mom used to be like, this was like psychological warfare with Sudani mom, she'd like go to the room, get his hizam, I'm coming. Like, so imagine making you pick the weapon you're gonna get beat with, right? So,
God.
You
just brought back so many memories. Yes.
So I'd go into the room and I'll tell Mona, come here, like, my sister, I'm like, sit down, and she'd be like, what? So we'll take out my dad's belts, like there'll be like 3 or 4 belts, and I'll try them on her, but like, does this one hurt? Does this one hurt? Right? And she's sitting there saying, "Oh, like, yeah, this one hurts, this one doesn't hurt." Okay. And then So she would get hit from me trying out all the belts on her, right? And then my mom would take time. She would go cook. She would clean. She would do whatever she was doing, and would start playing. Would forget about her, you know,
Coming to beat you
come
up.
in, and all of the sudden she would come into the room, you know, pick up a hizam, you know, beat us up, and then go on about her day, you know.
You guys are crying there like victims.
Yeah, bro, just like you're in the middle of being playing with something, and then your mom comes in and starts beating you up, like in So yeah, so that was kind of like my Ghana was a funny place, you know. And yeah, and like we did have a funny relationship then, but she like like to me, even though I said that was my first friend was Ahmed, I think really like it was my siblings who became my best friends, like because we had to move together everywhere type thing,
Mhm.
and that's what it was, especially my my sister that I'm telling you about right now. My other sister was born a little later, so like she was born when things settled down. Like in me and my other
Mhm.
sister, we did all those moves together, so wherever we went, we had to kind of be, in each other's faces, if you kind of
Batman and
understand.
Robin type thing.
Yeah, basically. And then we left Ghana, and went to went
You went to
to
Sudan for a little bit, right? And then went to Egypt, I'm assuming,
yeah,
at this point.
we went back to Sudan, and then we did I did another, like, I guess a half a year or a bit more of school,
Hmm.
and after that we what's the word we
Moved back.
moved to Egypt in 2000, June 2000. I remember we moved to Egypt, and yeah, that was kind of like, now things kind of started to get a little bit more difficult, because just like, it's kind of started to take a kind of like a toll. Like everywhere you go here for a little bit, you settle down, you make some friends, you go to school, whatever, boom, you have to leave.
Hmm.
Go back to Sudan. Now the people that I was friends with don't even remember me because I've been gone for like a year or two, whatever. Now I have to make new friends, whatever the case may be. You know, then as soon as I start making those friends, boom, you move. Go to a new country. Now you have to start again from square one. You know, so um,
And not
but
every country is as nice or as friendly as the next one, or
of course, especially when you have to go learn a new language, for example, or you have to like go to school with a whole bunch of new people, and like now,
Mhm.
like it was tough. It was very, very tough. And I, when we moved to Egypt, I kind of had to fight to be friends with people, like, if it makes sense, because like kids, how like 10 and 11-year-olds are, like they just
Boys.
they're just wild, right? So like you'd get picked on, and like especially they were a group already, and they would be like, what do you want to, like, and I'll try to like kind of be friends with them, but I didn't realize, like, at the time there was like an element of like, this guy's an outsider, this guy's like, they all grew up in the same building, they're all the same age, like since kid their parents know each other, like they
Mm.
had all this additional links that I had nothing to do with, and my parents weren't really friends with their parents, and like,
Now
and
this little black boy just came in and
yeah,
moved in.
exactly. And my name was Mohamed Al Asmarika. Like I didn't realize you know the connotation behind that until I
Muhammad
grew
Al
up.
Asmarika.
And like Asmarika is basically like dark or tan or whatever the case may be. Like that's what they would call me, right?
Like Black Muhammad. Yeah.
Basically. So yeah. So then, and then Egypt, I kind of like settled in. And but I used to just fight so much in Egypt. Like there was, because you constantly have to be on guard.
Hmm.
And yeah, and like I built like a, I guess, like solid foundation with those guys. I still remember them like clearly.
You
Like,
earned their respect.
yeah, I remember them very, very clearly. And there was literally, my name is Muhammad Wahid was one of them, and then I had another friend, Umar and Kareem. They were brothers, and another friend, his name was Majdi. Like I remember them like very, very vividly, because I spent a lot of my time like just playing out with them, and my parents felt a little bit safer now that I'm a little bit older and I can kind of understand. And I think they kind of understood that it was difficult for, like,
Hmm.
for us to keep moving, and not to have like stable kind of like friendship or whatever the case may be, or because you don't like type thing, you have to just keep moving and moving. And Egypt was like, how do I say? It was kind of like it was probably one of the tougher ones that I had to transition from because I did that little end of like. So imagine me like I did grade 1 in Sudan, then I went and did
Mm.
grade 2 in Syria, right? Then I went back and grade 2 and 3 in Syria. Then I went back to Sudan and did grade 4. Then I went to Ghana and did grade 5, right? Then I went to Egypt and I did grade 6. Like I never actually stayed in a school for more than one
For
grade, or
more,
grade and a half, So
like you have yearbooks from different schools in different
yeah,
years.
yeah, it was just wild, right? And then yeah, then Egypt was kind of like where I transitioned from, you know, primary school to
Middle
like
school.
middle school, right? And I remember like my friends that I went to school with, they were all going to we all moved into the school, and boom, 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 what happens? Here comes my family. Here comes my parents knocking.
Okay, we gotta
Time-
go. It's
it's
about
time,
that time.
it's time to pack up, and that's when I kind of started to retaliate because every single time I said, "Nah, it's okay." Like we have to go. I don't really
Mm.
have much of it, and I said, "Nah, I'm not going." Like thinking I had a choice.
Especially as a boy, yani, you already you become a bit more territorial. You wanna
Yeah,
mark your land. You wanna say, "This is my neighborhood, my friends, my
yeah,
life."
and that's exactly what
And
it was.
Mhm.
Mm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I said, "Nah, like not going." I had an uncle who was living in Egypt. I said, "I'm gonna stay with him." They said, "No, you're not. Pack your bags." you know?
You must have
Uh,
put that uncle in a tough situation. He goes to him crying like, "Can you please make me your child?" And he's just in there like, "I don't want to break this child's heart. Like, what do I do?"
It's funny because like my uncle wasn't even married. He didn't have a family at the time, like nothing like that. So,
Oh, come on.
but like thinking about it, he was pretty young. He was probably like in his mid-20s, like So my dad was like, look, my dad said to me, "Look, we're only going for a very short amount of time. We're gonna go to Australia, and we're gonna go for 2 years exactly, right? And after 2 years, we're gonna come back to um to Egypt." And I said,
Egypt.
"Okay, no problem." So I told all my friends, I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna be back in 2 years. Like, just hold off on this soccer game until I come back, and then we'll play when
I'm
I get."
remembering the score. It's
Uh,
3-2 for us.
yeah, hold on, and then they said, "Okay, like no, we'll wait for you." Like, and it was that's the first time I felt emotion,
Mm.
like or I recognized emotion. I think because younger, like I would just cry, I would laugh, whatever. Like this was the first time I actually felt sad, like or I felt hurt, or I felt or remembering actually that I felt like affected by something that was
Mm.
outside of my control.
It's probably your first heartbreak in a
Prob
sense.
Probably it wasn't my first heartbreak. I had a heartbreak in grade 6.
Yeah, so
But
Bismillah. Yo,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
wait, grade 6 was that
I'm playing. I'm playing. Like so we moved to we moved to Australia at the end of 2002, and
So just turned 12 years old.
yeah,
Took a
yeah,
long flight from literally the northern mid side of the world by the equator all the way down south. So you didn't just change location, you changed weather pattern. Yeah, and it has to summer is winter, winter is summer. You're in a English speaking country.
yep.
Completely different world. Like how was that?
And that was the biggest shock, really, out of everything. Originally, for everyone who knows geography, Australia is just so far away, right? So like even the fact when we I remember flying like to Syria or flying to Ghana or flying to Egypt, whatever. These were all short flights. It
Mm,
doesn't take that long for you to get to whatever you want to get to, type thing. But going to Australia, like I remember going from Egypt to Singapore, and that was like an 8-hour flight, right? And stayed in Singapore for a little bit, and then it's another 8-hour flight to Melbourne, Australia, right? So there was 16
ooh,
hours of just flight time, not including layovers and whatever the case may be, and exiting airport. So it took a good 20 something hours, to 21 maybe hours to get there, right? Um, so basically, we got there, and I remember it was a very December 14th. It was a very hot summer night. Mind you, I just left Egypt where it's cold, right? So,
December
hot summer
14th
night.
is summertime. It's like
Yeah,
July here, basically, Mush.
it's yeah, basically. Yeah, we get there, my uncle picks us up. So um, I'm a Tajid brother. He's there in Australia,
Oh
right?
my God, he has a
Yeah,
brother there too?
yeah.
Oh Lord, I do have more family over there. Shit. Okay. Not shit, but like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, he picks us up from the airport. I remember we go to his house, and everything for me is just shock because everything looks different. The driver on
Mm.
the other side of the road, like it's
Oh
it's
Lord.
it's hot. Like I just came from winter, like in Egypt, for example, right? Like everything is just so many things are happening at once. I'm so confused. I don't know what's going on. And I remember so clearly going into the apartment, lay down, and he bought us pizza. I remember, he bought us pizza to eat. And he was living in Azabi, obviously, like no wife, no children at the time, and he was just like nothing in the house, and he just the whole way on the drive, he's telling my mom, "Ana عايز كسرة أنا عايز," or he's like telling my mom this, and my mom's like, "No problem, like tomorrow morning I'll make you everything you
قوم نشدك والله يعوس لك الكسر
you
وأعمل
want."
لك الرجل.
So it was like, and now I have to learn this new guy who's my uncle that I have no idea about and don't know anything about him. And he's just like, Mohammed, no, he's talking to me, and I'm just very confused. Like, I don't know what's going on, you know? And yeah, we get back to the place, we eat, whatever. And then I lay in bed that night and I just cry, bro. I cry.
Mm.
Like all night, that whole week there, I was just crying. And all I kept saying to myself is, I don't want to live here. What's this place? Who are these people? I'm just confused. I'm like super confused. And
Mm.
I originally hated it like so much. I said, there's no way I'm gonna live here. Like I'm gonna talk to my dad tomorrow. I
And
have to
I'm out of this place.
Yeah, I have to go back. Like I said, that's it. There's no way I can live in this
Mirror country.
yeah, exactly. And then I mean, then like I kind of, we got our own place, and then I remember then the first time I kind of felt like I belong a little bit was, you know, after a few weeks of being there, you had to go to this like language assessment school, which is called Western English Language School, and they assess your English to see
If
whether
you can
you
speak,
yeah
وكده.
whether you need classes or you can go straight into school. And so uh, what I did was I went to the school and they assessed me and they said he doesn't need to be here for long, but he needs to be here for at least 3 months. Because this was
Mm.
me um, learning
Coming
English
from
learning English in Ghana for the whole year and a half. I still kind of retained a lot of
information
the
that you got
information,
that.
right? And that was the first time I realized that something in this moves worked for me in my favor, like that thing.
Mm.
Like I'm like, oh well, I don't need to go. I kept telling everyone, I'm like, oh, I don't really need to be here for a long time because I learned English in a different place, like that thing. But why I felt like I belonged there is because a lot of the people there kind of had the similar experience as me, that they kept moving and whatever the case may be. And a lot of there were some Sudani people there were some Ethiopians, Somalis, whatever the case may be, right? And even just different nationalities, like people of Arab backgrounds, people of European backgrounds, but everyone had one thing in common is that they were new and they had to move.
Mm.
So everyone kind of understood what it's like.
So I'm guessing, and maybe let me not guess. Actually, let me ask that question.
Mm.
Was this, like, from what I'm hearing from you, this was probably the first time throughout every يعني سفرية أخذتوها في حياتكم and every movement that this felt like I'm in a place where people move as much as I am مثلا أو
Mm.
إنه at least I'm not the new guy here alone
Yeah.
كده.
Yeah. Exactly. Just because when I moved to Syria, everyone was from Syria. When I moved to Ghana, everyone was from Ghana. When I went to Egypt, everyone was from Egypt. But when I
Mhm.
went to Australia, everyone was from everywhere. So, and
Wow.
everyone spoke different languages and everyone had stories, about, how this may have like that they miss their friends or they miss their families or like they're having a hard time getting used to the country. And,
Mhm.
everyone kind of had a different you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's one skill that I'm hearing that you learned, and to me, and I take pride in that. I learned that skill pretty early as a kid without even knowing that it was a skill, which is being able to recognize different languages, accents, dialects, and being able to, I'm not saying replicate them, but understand them enough to speak them. Um, like for me, I grew up in UAE where no one is from one place. I had Sudanese kids, I had kids from every Arab country, had Filipino friends, I had from everywhere. So I already had to adjust the way I speak so they could understand me my whole life. فلما جيت أمريكا, I did not speak one word of English. We came for one summer. When I went back, I spoke English, not fluently, but I spoke English enough to speak the whole day in English.
You knew enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that took a while for me to understand that that was a skill. But here, like the way I'm seeing it with you is that this was something you've already used to make yourself not only feel better, but to adapt to the situations that you were in.
Yep. Absolutely. And it was more like I'm not alone. So like going to school started actually becoming something like that I liked doing it just because I felt like I had like a crazy sense of belonging with all these people type thing, right? But then the shock came when 3 months finished and then I had to go to normal school, right? And then now everyone's been there. Everyone went to primary school together. Everyone's friends with each other.
Everyone is Australian.
Yeah, everyone's just been living there for time, So I'm just like, oh, here we go again type thing. And then I decided, I made a pact to myself. I'm just like, I'm not gonna be friends with anybody. Like that's it. Like I'm good because I don't want to make friends and then, here comes my
Lose
dad
them
again
again.
telling me we're leaving. So went through all of grade 7. No friends. I had one friend. He was Sudanese. His name was Sam. And he was his mom lived in the US and his dad lived in Australia, and he lived in Australia, and he was the only person that I would kind of speak to. But everybody else, like I would not mess with them. And I remember halfway through grade 8, my parents came to like parent teacher into like conference, and they were telling my parents, they're like, hey, like, is everything good with Mohamed, because he kind of doesn't want to make friends and he just kind of on his own, whatever. And
Man.
And yeah, and then my parents would like tell me like, "What's wrong?" And I'm just like, "Well, we're gonna move again, right?" And they're like, "No, we're not moving." And then and that's when it kind of hit me. Is like, "Hey, you said 2 years, like like what's going on?" And then they're like, "No, we're not going. Like, this is a good place. Like, we're gonna live here, wherever." And um, at this time too, my younger sister was born. She was born like a year before we went to Australia. So like she was, and for her it was kind of just like that's all she knew, that was Australia. And then me and my other sister would always talk about how we went everywhere else type thing. And this is where like I guess the issues with my not issues, but like this is where like kind of the fights with my other sister started. Like we'd fight all the time, would scream at each other, would yell, and just because I think there's a lot of frustration. I think there's a lot of like like I said, combativeness, just because you are like angry about something that you don't even know what you're angry about type thing. So
Yeah.
so it's
And
like
also,
I reach for control, like if you will, So
absolutely. But then I can imagine that the 4-year difference between you and your sister made it that for the first primary years of her life, she was getting her experiences through you, right?
yeah,
But she had reached the same level we were talking about with you earlier when you start building memories and you start building your own consciousness, your own ideals. So
absolutely, yeah.
she was probably trying to be just as territorial and like, no, I kind of like this now. Like, I want to have my own opinion that is not his. Ukida.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking like the third main factor, and I think that's the main factor in this whole situation was, you're not moving anymore. So you guys it's not you guys against the world anymore. This is your environment that you can like kind of, like everyone can go on his own kind of a thing now.
Own journey, yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
That must have been like quite a change. How long did that take in total? Like for you to go from I don't want to be here, I'm sad, to at this point خلاص أنا it is what it is, أنا قاعد في البلد دي, let me make friends.
Yeah, I think it took about a year at least before I kind of decided that I'm going to خلاص, like there's no point, because I remember everything kind of shifted when I got invited to a birthday party, like a high school birthday party, and like they're like, come, come, and I'm just like, okay, like no problem. And I remember it was a girl too. It was her birthday party.
I was
right?
about to ask you. I
You know?
knew it.
It was a girl, and I remember I said to my parents, I'm going to this birthday party, and they said, who's the girl? Who's the person? And I said, her name is this. And then this one I was kind of shocked with, like, because I never had to come to them and ask them about being friends with a girl, because all my friends were boys anyways, right? And they're like, but what do you mean she's a girl? Like, like, what do you mean it's a birthday? Like, I'm playing all these things where like this is my friend, this is whatever, and she wasn't even my friend. Like she just invited me to the birthday party, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then they said okay, like no problem, like, and I said to them like I want to make friends, and like you guys have to let me make friends, and I kind of started just being rebellious in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said okay, like no problem. And I remember like my mom started. That's the first time my mom gave me the speech of like, I'm sure every Sudan listen to this podcast would relate to this, but the speech of الناس دول ما زينا احنا ديننا مختلف احنا like oh you
عاداتنا
know
وتقاليدنا مختلفة. Don't go
yeah
doing
you
what
know
they do.
yeah لو شفتهم بيعملوا حاجة ما تعمل زي like all these kind of things, and I'm just like why are you telling me all this, like but it's like she never had to worry about it previously because like I never had to actually just go do things without them, like that thing,
Mm-hmm.
so plus now we're in like a Western country and like they're a lot more aware than I am at the time, right? And that's when I was exposed to a lot of things. Like I remember going to this birthday party and you know there were people drinking and there were people doing things, right? And to me it was all new, like
Mm-hmm.
all
This is at
and
like, let's say 14,
14,
15, you know.
14, 15 actually I would say
Mm-hmm.
15. And basically I remember like my dad said I'll pick you up at 10:30 or 11 o'clock or something like that, right? So and
Mm-hmm.
like 15 minutes before he was meant to come pick me up, a fight broke out, a huge fight broke out, right? There was some gate crashes, there was all this, and when my dad came to pick me up everybody was just brawling on the street, right?
Oh,
And then he picks me up and I'm just like shit, like
I'm never going
like
to.
and then I get in the car and he's just like this guy's in his jalabia, like he's tired, he's like he was asleep, he came to pick me up and he's like, this is what you want to come to, like and I'm just like oh my god. And so just like starting to learn all of these things was kind of crazy because I'm just like now I had to like, and for lack of better words, this is where kind of a lot of people begin to develop that double life. It's like you want to be in a Sudani family and like just be okay with everything, but then you also want to have this disconnect because you want to have fun with your friends and like they do
Absolutely.
different things to you, like type thing. So that was like a rough transition,
Mm-hmm.
and I really like alhamdulillah from the bottom of my heart, like I thank how well my parents kind of maneuvered me through that tough age, because I think things could have really gone left for me, like if
Mm-hmm.
there was like a fine balance of like letting me do things, but then if I wasn't allowed to do something, I was given a reason as to why I wasn't allowed to do a type thing, and a reason that kind of made sense to someone in my age, so I didn't have like it became more of like a respect thing than a fear thing. Like I just worried more about disappointing them rather than being scared of them.
Yeah, I
If it
think,
makes sense.
yeah, that's the transition from going to get your ass beat by a belt to let me talk to you and say things to you that will hurt you more than beating,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of a thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
at some point, I'm assuming, I'm not assuming, actually, I know this for a fact that in the end, our parents are also learning through us,
Yeah,
throughout this whole thing. You know, just like you have the full context of that fight and everything. If I try to imagine from the dad's perspective, I'm in Australia in a whole different world. I let my kid go to this random person's party that I don't even know because usually I would know who the parents are. I get there and holy shit, what is happening here? And
yeah,
this is the type of life my kid's going to be having.
mm,
What do I do? Do I have to become super overprotective? Do I just, like dismiss him every time he asks an extra question? What do I do? Because, like, let's say, the usual conversation. Oh, you better not smoke weed because it's a gateway drug. No, no, no,
mm,
no. For me, it started with do not lie. Because if you lie, you will steal. If you
mm,
steal, you will smoke weed. If you
mm,
smoke weed, you will do cocaine. If you do
mm,
cocaine, you do heroin. If you do
mm,
heroin, you would die.
mm,
That was the sequence in everything in life that we did revolved around that sequence. Like they'll find a way to attach it. Oh,
yeah,
you skipped the salah, that means you're gonna start lying. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like there's
yeah.
always an addition,
It was all
and
like very systematic. Yeah,
exactly, and it
yeah,
never made sense to the point that, as a boy specifically, come on, you're gonna be like, you know what? Let me test my waters. Let me test my limits. Let
yeah.
me
You're
see how
naturally
far I can
curious.
go.
Yeah,
And then I think where it goes into two different directions for me because I lived in the Arab world, Muslim country, kida. If I was like the double life was not really a double life,
mm,
but living in a Western world, I can imagine in which they had to have almost two different personalities. Adil,
yeah.
in that. So how was that? Yani, um, how was at what point did you find that disconnect يعني
Yeah.
necessary?
I
Was
mean,
it go ahead.
it was more just like when I had to go to events, you know, like it was very, because like I had to tell my parents I'm going to this person's house or I'm going to this party, whatever, right? And like I had to make sure that they can trust me to go there, right? And then I had to go there, and then people will be doing things that I know I shouldn't be doing, but you know, if I want to fit in with them, I kind of have to do it, right? So like, so it's that. But then that's where I kind of, and I'm alhamdulillah, like that's where I developed, I guess, the personality that I have now. Is that's when I learned to say no, you know, and that's when I learned to be comfortable in myself and like not doing things to make people like me, like that thing, right? Because I knew that for me, if my parents were disappointed at me, then I'm gonna have to deal with a lot more than if these people didn't like me, right? Because why? Because I have to go back into this house and I have to live there, and I have to eat there, and I have to like hear them talk about it the whole time, right? But these people, I'm only gonna see them at the party, or I'm gonna see them at school. You know, most of the time, I don't live with them like that thing, right? And most importantly, I understood why I wasn't allowed to do things. Like I remember, like I would see people, you know, for example, getting into fights, for example, right? And I'd be like, you know, um, like they get into fights or whatever, or they end up getting locked up, or they end up getting hurt really badly, whatever the case may be. And I'll just be like, I don't really, you know. Or I'd see some people who, like, you know, and this is even later on my later high school days, like some people were like dealing drugs, for example, and they will come to school with a lot of money, for example, and but then they end up like seeing where they are in life right now, and not to look down on them. Everyone has a different journey, but like I'm glad that I was able to say no, you know. So for me, it was more so like really having to understand why I'm saying no, and it made sense to me from like a young age, as to why I shouldn't be doing some of the things that these people were allowed to do or like doing, for example. And I didn't have the pressure of birth parents, if it makes sense. You know, my parents had this very interesting dynamic of like my dad was obviously just the authority, you know, in the house. Like if whatever he said, like went type thing. But my mom did a lot of the legwork, right? Like the where are you?
Absolutely.
Come home. Who are these people? If I say I'm going to my friend Andy's house, she'd be like, "Who's Andy? Bring Andy to the house. Let me meet Andy. Let me see him. Whatever the case may be." So I always had this thing where like I had to always, you know, be careful in who I kind of interact with and whatever they came. And like it worked out in my favor because I ended up developing very genuine relationships with good people that I should have in my life, you know, instead of
Absolutely.
just letting me go into be friends with everybody and they don't know. And I remember this so clearly, like my two like, you know, closest friends in Australia, you know, like Sudani guys, you know, Wahbi and Mohamed. I grew up with them, right? And the same age as me, you know, we're all 1 year apart, like all of us, right? And when I said to her I'm gonna go hang out with Wahbi and Mohamed, she'd be like, okay, she never asked any questions. Okay, why? Because she knew their mom, she knew their dad, she knew their families. Their families would come over, would go over to their houses, so she knew exactly what the families were like, right? So and she'd be like, "All right, you can go." And one day I asked her, I said, why are you so okay with me and Mohammed and Wahabi, like just doing whatever, but like my other friends?" And she goes, "Because I know there's three of yous, and I know the values that their families have, and I know how they've been raised, type thing, right? And I
So
know,
that
yeah,
for
and
that, I have
mm,
a specific question for you. That's
mm,
actually that's actually a very good point.
mm,
When it comes to the foundation, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but
mm,
um, do you think that before you met I'm sorry, Mohammed and Wahabi
yeah,
and
yeah, Mohammed, yeah,
so Mohammed and Wahabi, you think that for you specifically, when you were in those social situations, كنت قاعد يعني أهلك ما مركزين معك, you
mm,
have a couple of kids, let's say, drinking, doing something.
mm,
Do you think that it's the foundation that was built in you, or that you were taught before coming to Australia, because you came at a later age than other countries, but or or is it a mix of either that and maybe a sense of finally knowing that, yeah, I'm in Australia, I'm living here, I'm adapting here, but I'm still Sudanese, kind of a thing? Because those two things come with, like I see it a lot with kids that move on in the later ages of their life,
mm,
rather than being born there. Because
mm,
when you're born, I've heard kids come and say, I'm not Sudanese, I'm American, or
yeah,
Kida.
yeah.
And, no judgment, but I'm just trying to understand that maybe that's the cause, or go ahead.
I mean, to be, I think it was a combination of factors. I met Wahbi the first week I was there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
to different schools, so we only saw each other on like weekends or whatever the case may be, right? And
Okay.
I met Mohammed maybe 2 years after being in Australia, right? So like there was still a bit of like time,
In between the relationships.
between the relationships, like actually fostering and developing to what they are now. Now they're 20, like almost me and Wahbi been friends for 19 years, right? So
Makes
it's crazy, right? Like
hmm
when you actually deep how long that is, that's like that's like
I know people that are 19, so that's their whole
70
life.
70%. Like I've deep this, right? I only know my sister, my younger sister, 1 year more than I know Wahbi.
True.
That's like, do you get me? So it's just
Mhm.
it's crazy, right? So yeah, you have this kind of like and to your point is, it was more so like with those friends, like with my Sudani friends, for example, is my mom used to always say to me, if two of you want to do something bad, the third one will say let's not do it,
hmm
like type of thing. So she's like, I just trust in that process more, and um, for me it was more so like that. I always had this thing where I didn't really worry. I was kind of always on edge, like that. I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna whatever, right? So I didn't really care too much if these people kind of like me or not anymore, because I'm just like, I'm probably not gonna be here, and it kind of
hmm
something that just fostered in me over the years, that I didn't really care too much, because everywhere I went, I kind of never ended up seeing those people again, anyways.
And this
So
is in the general scope of friends
yeah,
in Australia, not
yeah,
specifically to those two guys. Or
yeah, no, no, no. Like, but what I'm saying is, I'm just relating this to the fact is that I would go to places and people are doing things that I
Mhm.
don't necessarily do or didn't do. Um, it didn't matter to me whether they liked me or not, type thing, because I'm just like, I'm probably
I'm
not
out
gonna see
anyways.
I'm probably not gonna see them again, like, and I'm probably not
Mhm.
gonna come to this party again. And I always had this mentality where like if they don't like me, they don't like me, type thing. Like, halas, like I'm not really fussed, because I didn't want to come to this party. Like, I got forced into coming here, for example.
Mhm.
Like,
See,
mm,
why I asked that, because that's what I thought at the beginning.
mm,
But then I also think about it in this way, that I could have also gone the other extreme, which is I'm
mm,
not going to see you guys again. So I might as well go as crazy as I can
mm,
and have like do everything I want to do, because I'm never going to do it again.
yeah,
But no, you went the opposite way. And for a kid at that
mm,
age, at a 15-year-old boy who's discovering life, discovering everything, الحاجات اللي بتيجي معاه, it's يعني an incredible amount of self-control. It takes an incredible amount of self-control to do that. And it's something commendable. لأنه I wouldn't have had that type of self-control.
yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
Don't
So
get me
that's why
wrong.
I asked.
I absolutely messed up, like in one way or another. Like,
Mm,
I didn't always have it, because as a teenager, you always get roped into things that you think you're doing right, but it's wrong. Like, for the most part, Alhamdulillah, I did have the self control, and and just becoming an adult. Like, I ended up, from 12, I lived in Australia until I moved, last year. I did, good from the age of 12 until the age of 30. In Australia, like, everything I think, even finishing high school, a lot of things didn't make sense to me when I did them, but now I'm at this age, I know exactly why. You know, I
mm,
I did them and why I was able to do them. Type of thing. Or like, the fact is that, not to toot my own horn, but like, the fact is that almost everyone I meet says to me, "Oh, I just feel like I've known you for so long. I feel like I can talk to you about everything. I feel like I can come to you, for example." And I didn't realize the fact is that I had to, in all those years when I was a child and meeting all those people and developing all those relationships and being exposed to different cultures and different societies, that it prepared me for my adulthood in a way where, like, now I can just relate to everybody on a different level, type thing, or I'm able to kind of jump head first into doing things, because I've always had to jump head first into doing things. You know,
no,
do you get me? And like, yeah,
absolutely. Especially as Sudanese people, because we're very, very social.
yeah,
يعني
mm,
نحن most of our life energy comes from social life, because being a Sudanese family, مثلا, living in a country where there's no one else and you can't socialize and all that, we won't survive.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you need to have those skills. And for us, it becomes something that is like so vital for us, that when we move somewhere else, we only stick to each other, because we're so scared of not having the same type of thing, not
mm,
having the same type of relationships or the same type of foundations. And we think, you know what? خلينا أنا في حالي هنا خير مع 2 3 that I know and
Mm.
never go out into the world and express
Yeah.
who we are. Then we have a lot. Yani stories like yours is literally why I wanted to do this, because I can relate to everything in your story, even though I can say I have not even gone through half of what you've gone through when it comes to
Mm.
moving.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring because it tells me that no matter what we do, we can always evolve
I mean,
and get better and adapt. And go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to kind of say this, just because I attribute a lot of my achievements in life to my moving.
Hmm.
You know, the fact is that I had to adapt so quickly. You know, like I used to be as every person. Like now, like you know, for and I probably should have said this earlier, but for those who don't know, like I podcast as well, right? So like I've done the podcast for the Imbalanced Podcast is my podcast. Check it out if you can. Self
Oh,
plug. You know, but
actually, let's do a full on plug right now. But go
no,
ahead.
no,
Yeah.
we'll get into it. But I yeah, like doing the podcast. I also write, right? So like when I did my book, right? I started my first business when I was 25. I had that cafe, right? Um,
Mm.
like all of these things, I remember doing them, and to me, it just felt super normal, super natural, super okay to do. But I never realized like how big they were, I guess, right? Because to me, it was a normal thing to try different things, and for me to like jump into the deep end and not knowing what the outcome will be. But
Because your whole life you were forced to do it.
because
You
that's
didn't
what
even have the choice to do it at
Yeah,
that time.
exactly. So like when I got older, it became by choice that I'm very curious and I'm very like, let me do this, let me try this, let me go there, whatever. And
Mhm.
that's how I like part of the reason why I ended up in Canada, is because I got to the stage in my life. I remember I went to Sudan in 2019, July 2019, and things were still pretty hot, like from the revolution and everything. And I went, and I just had this crazy like experience there that I'm just like, holy crap, like I can do so much with my life. And like this is like me even like just having a reality check. The fact is that I have opportunities to do so, you know that I
Mhm.
can do something for myself and be able to help people here as well, type thing. um
Absolutely.
so like when I came back to Australia, I'm like, I have to, like, I'm gonna leave,
Mm.
and I'm gonna go, I'm gonna live in a different country, I'm gonna try different things. And then I had the conversation with my parents, and funniest thing is my parents said, go, Allah
Go.
ma'ak. Literally, like they started talking to me about what I wanted to do, and they said, "Where are your options?" But like 80% of it was just very supportive. Go, try, explore, experience. And for a Sudani family, it's a little bit different because they kind of want you to stay with them forever, right? Like,
Absolutely. Even
so
when you're married, until you have
yeah,
your first child.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, go.
Before we move out of Australia and move into Canada,
Mm,
I want to speak to a few things that I want to like two subjects specifically that you thrived in Australia, and what one of them is one thing you mentioned here, but let's talk about the podcast first.
mm,
So you're still in Australia, and what got you into podcasting and why podcasting? Talk about a bit about the podcast itself, because I'm not going to do it justice by trying to explain what it is, but it is something that needs to be mentioned because it's something that you're still doing as part of who you are. And if I'm ever going to give a proper presentation, just like what you do as a job, I will be saying he's a podcaster as well. But
mm.
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the podcast was funny because the podcast was originally an idea of me and my sister, right?
Hmm.
We just have very funny conversations, right? Like, and we just said one day we're driving someone, we're just laughing about something, and she's like, we should do a podcast, and I'm like, you know, not really into it. And she's like, nah, trust me, like we'll do good, boom, boom, boom. She's telling me all these things, and I'm like, you know what? Well, I'll think about it. And then literally like a few months later, she had to move for uni anyways, so she ended up moving to a different like city that was like 4 hours drive, and the whole idea obviously was scrapped, right?
Wow.
Then her best friend's husband, right? Um, he was her fiance at the time. I would always run into him, and he would, like, whenever we had events at my house, for example, who's my co-host Burhan, he would come over the house. When if there was like a birthday, if there was like a barbecue or something, he would come, and me and him would always hit it off because he got married young, right? So we're the same age, me and him. He got married at like 24, I think, or 25. No,
Ooh,
no,
mashallah.
maybe a bit older, maybe
Oh,
26. I'll say. But always hit it off in the sense of like he's always like, when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna do this? And he just like he was always just preaching married life, and I was single, right? And he would just be like, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I still got a lot that I want to do, And he'd just be like, bro, trust me. And our conversations would always be about comparing married life to single life type thing, right? And
hmm
we'd just talk and talk and talk. And then I remember the World Cup came. They, well, the last World Cup, 2018 World Cup, sorry, came. And then he would come over my house every single day, would like watch the games, would like,
Sit
um,
down, talk.
chop it up, whatever, right? And at the end of that year, he was just like, man, like, he came over to my younger sister's birthday. He came over to her birthday party. We had like something at my house, and he said, "Yo, why don't we do a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, like literally just do it. You and I will just we always have good conversations." And again, we slept on it for like 3 months, and then March of 2019. Literally one day I messaged him like, "Yo, do you want to record today?" Like, wallah lazim, that's how it was. I'm like, "Do you want to record today?"
Wow.
And he said, "Yeah, I'm down." I'm like, he goes, "I'll come over in an hour." He came over my house. We had no microphones. I didn't know how to edit it. I didn't know how to. I had no idea about anything. Literally, just put my laptop on, press record on the laptop using the laptop microphone, and we just banged out an episode. Like, and just over
Okay.
conversations that we usually have. So, what makes our podcast is that we don't really plan anything. We don't have
Mhm.
notes. We don't have. It's very very raw, very organic, and it's all like relatable conversations that two buddies will have, like two friends would have, like
Mhm.
you know. Um, so yeah,
Two
and
contrasting lives, though. Like
yeah,
in the end.
exactly. Yeah, so the whole idea was built of comparing married life and single life, type of thing, and and then would just kind of do different topics and would just do controversial topics like can men and women be friends, who's more controlling, like for example, like you know um why a guy so like this way, for example, or
Mhm.
like or double stack, like whatever the case may be, right? But all topics that every group of friends talk about,
These
right?
are interesting. Yeah, I find them more thought provoking than controversial.
Yeah, you know
I feel you. Hmm
um and then from there we grew pretty fast because there wasn't much in the way of African podcasters in Australia at the time, right? So like a lot of people kind of like tuned in, and we grew fast, and people started just sending us questions. "Hey, can you guys talk about this? Like, can you guys explore this topic?" And then we'll do like quizzes and polls and stuff on Instagram, and people will give us their opinions, and yeah, and then from there it kind of just
Took off.
like took
So,
off really, you
how
know.
was that feeling? Knowing that you guys went from we're just doing this for fun to wow, I have fans. Like I
Yeah,
have people that actually
I
follow me.
I tell you I tell you a funny story. I never realized how deep it was until one day I was at a cafe with my younger sister, and we're having lunch, right? And we're just eating, and we finished eating, and then gave her my I gave her my bank card. I said, "Hey, go pay for everything. Um, I'm gonna make a phone call, and then we can leave." And she's like, "Cool." She takes my card. She boots off. I grab my phone, right? And there's two girls sitting beside me, right? And one of them says, "Excuse me." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but are you MK?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why?"
Wow.
I said, "Why? Why?" I'm like, "Why are you asking?" And she goes, "Do you have a podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And she's like, "Are you MK?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I recognize your voice." And I was just like, "Well," and I don't
Wow.
do video, right? Like we just do audio,
Yeah.
and I was just like tripping out, bro. I'm just like, shit, and
Like
my
you heard my voice and recognized it.
Yeah, and that was the trippy part, right? And I'm just like, I'm not like, I don't have the best of voices, so like, but the fact is that she listened to it enough times to recognize my voice was wild to me, right? So I'm just like, yo, thank you I appreciate your support, whatever the case. And that was the first time that I'm like, shit, people actually listen to this shit, like it's crazy. And then and then I remember like and I'll get into that in a little bit, but like it's a weird feeling that people know you and recognize you before you've ever met them, like
hmm
because they're like, "Hey, you're the guy from the podcast." Hey, I'm just like, "Yeah, that's me," So,
Yeah.
it's crazy, and and you'll see, inshallah, when you grow this thing to a level where people start recognizing you, like it's gonna become Amro who? Oh, Amro from distant relative, like that's what you're gonna be, like, do you get me?
Oh,
Like, and that's what it is for me. It's just like, hey, MK from the Imbalanced Podcast, and like that's how people like kind of know me, or whatever the case may be. But it's a weird feeling, and it's not even to the grand scale of like, oh wow, I have crazy fans, whatever. People who know you, which that you don't know, people who listen to you in their car
Mhm.
or on their walk to work, for example, and you have no idea who these people are. Like when I used to look at the analytics, and I'll find people listening in like Netherlands and people listening like France or whatever, and I'm just like,
Like it tumnu,
what's going on? Like, you know,
yeah.
yeah.
And so
Mhm.
my question to you in that regard is, did it move? Did it change the way you feel about the podcast from a responsibility standpoint, or not responsibility, but that now I have to create instead of I want to create, or did it did it take an adjustment, or was it never that way?
It never did, because we literally just did it for fun.
Hmm.
We did it for fun. Like we stayed very consistent because we actually enjoyed doing it, and we felt more it was like a therapy session for us, like more than it was content for people. You know,
Beautiful.
it just happened that we like to do it, and it happened that people like listening to it. That's how it kind of like went to that.
Mm.
There wasn't no like preparation. There was wallahi, there was no notes. There's we only researched when we spoke about a topic that needed you to research. Like we had a conversation once about, you know, like black women dying in birth in like way higher
Child
numbers,
labor.
you know,
Hmm.
in than other nationalities, and like that's a topic that we needed to research for to get stats and facts and figures and make sure that we give the correct information, right? Like,
Hmm.
or we spoke about mental health, for example, like topics that require like research. We research, but for the most part, we because it's banter for us, like we don't really, and it's just he comes to my house. What do you want to talk about today? What about this? Like that. Wallahi, that's how it goes, you know. And then flick the mic on, start recording, and whatever comes out type thing, you
Yeah.
know.
So
So
the reason why I ask is because a lot of people, I hear them say that after I found out I have fans, it just kind of changed their attitude towards the show.
yeah,
Some felt responsible to make things for
mm,
people. Some felt like I am the content creator for them, content provider. So if I don't do it, I don't know what they'll do, kind of thing. Or
mm,
I might make some money off. Like everyone kind of bisrahu bil ideas,
mm,
and it kind of throws people off, or some people change the way they are. That's why I asked that question. So it's nice to see that to you, it was more of an affirmation to continue what you were doing.
yeah. I mean, it's like it was good because like we didn't have the pressure of like, you know, having to come up with different, like me and Burhan and like natural conversations, you know, like so
Mm.
like, you know, for us it was never an issue coming up with a conversation or a topic, and we could literally like talk about this mic, you know, for an hour and just make noise, and people will still listen to it, like because we had a way of actually delivering it that it made it sound interesting or made it sound, so it was more so like just the natural skill of conversation that made it easier. And the responsibility came with kind of consistency, because like people would just ask like, yo, when is the episode coming out, for example, right? But
Wow.
yeah, but not more, but not much about what kind of content is being provided. Like it was kind of, you know, whatever came out type thing. And some episodes we knew they were shit episodes, but we already recorded it, we already put it out, for example, and it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but we'll still put it out. But in terms of actual, the only difficult part I would say is remaining consistent, you know,
Mhm.
and continuing to grow. Like we're 92 episodes deep, right? So like, you know, and we should be at over 100. We should really be at 108 right now, right? But we had some, you know, hiccups here and there and things, you know, time and whatever. We should be at more than 108 really, because we didn't
Wow.
record for a while when I moved to Canada. But yeah, it's just it's a kind of like it's kind of like a responsibility, and you have to provide for these people because they enjoy listening to you, but not in terms of actual material. Like it's more so like just being consistent and understanding that you have a fan base that, you know, wants you to talk to them.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm.
So, okay, so let's first of all, 92 episodes. That's technically 92 weeks
Yeah.
worth of content. I
Yep.
mean, a year has 52 weeks, so
Mm. Mm.
that's almost 2 years away. You're almost have enough content for 2 years worth of
Yep.
work.
Yep.
And that in itself is something that I keep being told that if you're going to make a podcast, you need to be consistent. So how was it like? Did you find any trouble keeping up the consistency or to keep going? Because I'm assuming that it's not at 108 or higher is because your move and everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And let's say out of all the whole 2 years, you guys took 1 week off, مثلا.
To be honest, we only took time off when like time needed to be taken off. We should be literally, we should be close to 200 episodes. Like we should be literally like there was because we did once a week, right? So like I've been in Canada for like 5 months now. We only recorded twice, right? So like think of how many weeks that is, right?
Yeah.
Like that you
That's
know you
20
missed out.
weeks.
Then you've got like times where like my co-host his father passed away, so he had like a 2 month like type of thing where we didn't touch a mic, whatever. We had like COVID lockdowns, restrictions, people couldn't like meet or whatever. So there was all of these kind of factors that came into play that we couldn't really record, right? But remaining consistent is more so. I think when you get good feedback, right? It motivates you. Number one. Number two, the only advice I have for anyone who's doing a podcast, remaining consistent, is make sure you actually want to do a podcast and you enjoy doing a podcast, and you don't care if you have one listener or you have 1,000 listeners. Like, and that's Burhan and I. That's the only thing that worked for us. We didn't care who listened to it. we literally didn't care. Like like if we looked at one episode and it got like 200 plays, right? And last week got 3,000 plays. We don't be like, oh man, we can't. We have to stop because no one listened to it. We didn't care. Like we just keep going. And because one, we enjoyed doing it, and two, we didn't care about what results it was yielding for people, or like how many people listened to, or how many people were sharing it. It was more so that we enjoyed doing it, and that's the only thing that helps us stay consistent.
لأنه من البداية you didn't set for yourself those expectations of I want to be famous, I want to make money, I want to do this.
Yeah, exactly right.
I think that also goes back to our conversation we were having in the offline when we were talking about the format or the language. Yeah, so that was the thing, that's why I want to kind of keep it a bit of Arabic, a bit of English, like in a Sudani dialect, because it's not something that like I'm okay with it going out to the world and everybody liking it, but I'm also okay if one Sudani person heard it and said I liked it.
Yeah,
because everyone has representation, but we lack it. And like it really that's one of the main moments when I found out you had a podcast. It was like a moment of pride, and at that point I didn't even know you, but just knowing that there are Sudanese guys somewhere in the world who are thinking the exact same way, and you know what, not even thinking the exact same thing, they thought it and they did it years before you. That kind of gave me that comfort that we're gonna be okay.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know if you feel that when you see Sudanese people making it, or is it something that's like, I don't know. Go ahead.
It's crazy, and I'm gonna relate these to you in a different way. Like, when it comes to Sudanese people doing it, as you know, like I published my poetry book in 2020, right?
Perfect. So, like, that's what I wanted to segue to. Thank you, my guy.
I published my book in 2020, and I remember like when I published it, I was kind of still like running around, and I came across shout out to Bayadir. I know she's your friend. I'm not really friends with her, right? But like I met her on Clubhouse, and she was a writer, right? And she's a writer, sorry. And I came across her Instagram, and then I saw that she was writing, and now you got her book. That's mine. Oh, that's hers. So I came across that, and I'm just like, whoa, like there's someone else who's like, is publishing and writing, and Asma as well. I'm not sure if you know Asma al-Badawi,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Crazy. I met her on Clubhouse too, and like her poetry was amazing, right? And I started coming across all these people just a little bit after I published my book, right? So like when I was publishing, I didn't really know too many people like who were, who were like, because in Australia, like the community is much smaller than it is in the
US or UK.
The US or UK, right? So like, and I didn't have many connects with them, right? So when I put it out, it was kind of like, again, and that goes back to also my childhood, me just jumping into things and me like not really being afraid of kind of like
the new experience,
the experience or the backlash, or not even backlash, but like how people may perceive it. I just did it because but I must admit, I used to struggle a lot with actually just posting content because I was kind of anxious or like, self-conscious about how people may perceive me as a person, because I always had this happy, persona, whatever the case may be. And my writing is a lot more like deep. And a lot of people who see my writing don't realize, don't even know that it's me. They're like, there's no way I thought you write like this type thing because of the way I speak or the way I connect with them. But and with my writing is funny because I was like 80% of it is not even about me. It's more like I meet this person, they tell me a story, and I can twist it, manipulate it into a poetry piece type thing. But yeah, again, when I met all these people in Clubhouse, I was just like so happy, and I'm just like there's other people doing this, and there's other people like performing. And when I got to know more about Sudanese like musicians and like rappers who are living abroad, I was also like very proud because I'm just like, there's such a like that we have so much creativity, but like I don't know, like are we the generation that's meant to kind of break everyone, the neck, or break the kind of
break
the
the
ice,
mold of yep.
yeah, because like naturally, Sudani, like you saying, I guess you wanted to be a podcaster, you wanted to be like a poet, whatever. Like your family will see that as like a second thing to like your actual career, right? But like if I said I wanted to be a podcaster and that's my job, like why do you want to be a podcaster? If I said I'm gonna just write poetry books, like, well,
What value are you adding to society?
The creativity of it. And it's funny because like we have so much creative people in Sudan. We have so many musicians, we have so many artists, we have so many like whatever you can think of, like we have, right?
Some of the best writers, like you have a Tayyip Saleh, like imagine he never wrote a book.
Yeah, like, do you get me? So it's wild in that sense, and that's why it's kind of like representation is important, because we don't lack anything, like in terms of creativity or in terms of actual motivation or drive. There's people who actually, and there are people who are doing great things right now, like and people who are taking big leaps, but yeah, just to like kind of answer your question, I got a lot of comfort as well just when I started seeing that other people were doing the same thing and doing it even better than I am. Like there's girls that I mentioned that are amazing, like at the things that they do. And it's nice to see that they you can connect with people who are like-minded, or people who do things that you enjoy doing as well.
To give people context, come on, who Asma and Bayada are. Asma, if you saw a female basketball player in the UK playing for the national team, doing the adverts, wearing the scarf and everything, that's who she is, just to give you a visual description. But that's a person you need to follow and see what they do to understand exactly why MK is, and speaking of her that highly. And when it comes to Bayadr, same thing. One of the people that got me into writing poetry and encouraged me and used to sit down and edit my poems and tell me where,
things, yeah.
Exactly. So for someone to be going through everything they're going in life and take on a person as a mentee while they're publishing their own book and sending it out with their own money and their own efforts, kiddo, I was like, yo, I really am a fan of yours as much as you are my friend.
Yeah.
That's the context, but keep going.
Yeah. And to to the credit, like I actually don't know, like even with me saying the things that I'm saying, I don't know these people personally. Like, do you get me? Like I don't, like, you may know them personally, but I don't. Like I had several interactions with them on online, like on Clubhouse, whatever the case may be. And I follow them on social media, whatever the case may be, but I don't actually, like, I don't speak to them, on a regular basis. But I'm a fan from far. Like I see what they do, I appreciate it, and it inspires me, because it's like I'm someone who likes to get creative, and I like to give things a shot. So yeah, but it is great to kind of
yeah, and it's also like a lot of it goes back to also not just the like what will people perceive it as, it's the actual doing of the thing. Like we theorize, okay, this is how I'm gonna do it, this is what I'm gonna have on it, these are the type of conversations we're gonna have, but that's where it ends. There's no action. There is nothing to be done.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, I think we kind of fall behind in things. I remember we in the city that we live in, we the Sudanese community and ساكنين هنا from, I would say, at least the late 80s, early 90s. The last few months was the first time ever in نلاقي المير بتاع city as Sudanese people. And when we explained to him نحن متين قاعدين, what we've been doing in the community وكده, the guy was shocked. He was like, why didn't I ever hear about you guys? ما سمعت بكم ليه? Why don't I know that you guys are represented here?
Wow.
يعني انتوا عندكم حاجات كثيرة that I would love to help you, يعني, or to show to the city of ours and show them that the foundation of the city is not just مثلا this culture, that culture. No, there's the Sudanese culture as well. And everyone in the population knows it, but us as representatives ما عارفين الحاجة دي, فما عارفين نعمل لكم representation كيف, نصلح حياتكم كيف, make you feel like you're a part of this place كيف. And when people like you, Bayad Asma, everyone goes out and shows the talents and shows who they are, it will force people to go back and look and find out what culture brought this on us. Yeah, these artists, these thinkers, these workers, whatever it is.
See that's where kind of the responsibility comes in, and that's what kind of when you were talking about earlier when it comes to content. The only time I felt a lot of responsibility with kind of like my content making, you know, and it's funny because, like, you know, I still have a day job, you know, so like so I still have to go to work, you know, like this is all the stuff that I like to do in my, you know,
on the side,
on my spare time, yeah. And but I remember I got invited to speak at a school, at a school seminar, right? And I went to speak to people in between grade 9 and grade 12, right? About content creation, about writing, about podcasting, about whatever. And, you know, it was kind of just to, like, make them feel like it's okay to kind of put yourself out there and stuff. And that's where I felt the responsibility. Is like, I was approached by this, you know, by the school, and they said, hey, we like your stuff. Whenever someone put me in contact with them, and they put me in contact, and I was just like crazy, right? And then a few weeks after it, I got approached by this magazine in Australia called Podium Magazine, and they were having a poetry competition, and they said, we read your book, we love your book, we want you to be a judge on the panel of this competition. And I had to judge people's poetry, and to me that was crazy, because I'm just like, yo, just chill out, you know.
Whoa.
You get me? So like doing that's why I kind of felt the responsibility. But because when I do things for myself, I just do it because I like doing it. But when someone comes to me and says, we need you for X, Y, and Z, that's when I kind of feel like, okay, I really need to tune it. You know, I need to like look at this correctly and provide something good, because now the expectation is external a lot more, because I've been directly asked, you know, versus when I write a piece and I post it on Instagram or I post it for my book, then I don't really feel that responsibility, because it's more so like a thing for me that I like doing. You know, like I'm not really looking for validation from anybody or looking for, but when you're approached, especially when you're, you know, that there's an element of, recognition, you know, and an element of this event being advertised with your name on it, your picture on it, you know, and, you know, they're paying you to do something for them as well. Like, you kind of like, okay, like this needs to be
is
done.
Serious now.
Yeah, this is serious. This needs to be done correctly, you know, and that's why I kind of feel the pressure, if you will, or the responsibility of delivering something really, really great, because now I'm representing people who write, I'm representing people who podcast, I'm representing Sudani people, like, there's so much that you're kind of carrying, you know, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah,
I actually really like hearing about the book, and the fact that as a first project, especially, it's really hard for a writer, poet, or anything to have their first ever published book bring them a lot of recognition. Okay, usually, you know, your first product is something that you put out for yourself, by yourself, but that it kind of starts becoming refined, until maybe the second or third product is where you get the recognition. So it's really nice to see that even locally you can work so hard on something that it will be recognized, even if it's the first
Yeah.
edition of it.
I think that all came because honestly, I think that all came because the podcast was already active. Like I was already kind of had like a platform and people, and I also had like I also had I had an Instagram page for my writing, so like there was that kind of there already. But most importantly, I think all of it kind of happened because like my relationships with people, like it all came down to the relationships that I fostered, the kind of friendships that I built, and people were super happy to kind of help and be there when I need it. Kind of, you know, um,
That's amazing.
support. Yeah, and that's something that I guess all Sudanese have is like people like us. So it's something that you could really not take for granted, but you can really use to your advantage. When you're beginning and setting out, and just being social people and understanding social cues and understanding how to treat people, it could really go a long way for you. So
Absolutely, absolutely,
yeah,
and that comes with the travel. يعني
mm,
لأنه everywhere you go, the nuances and يعني الحاجات الصغيرة في الculture حتتغير. يعني even if you
yeah,
go Egypt to Sudan, to the outside world, oh yeah, they're bordering countries, everything must be the same. No,
yeah,
things are almost completely different
yeah. Of
if
course.
you really look at it in that kind of sense. يعني if you live there. And
Mm, mm,
طيب, now, w- given that, why I asked about the book and the podcast is you finally kind of build your kingdom in Australia.
yep.
So what changed in that made you, not made you, but kind of gave you the will to move again at
Yeah.
this point as an adult in your life?
Now it became more about me, to be honest. It
Mm,
became more about like I'm someone who's I seek challenges. I always want a challenge. Like I always want the next thing. I don't get enough. I don't really care about the end result. I just care about the process. Like I enjoy the
the journey.
process a lot more than I enjoy the finished product, if it makes sense, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And for me, it was more like I you know before I have a family, before I like settle down completely and everything like that, like I want to be able to experience this thing on my own, where I live, where I try, where I travel, meet different people, do different things. I'm writing my second book right now, like like for myself. And like coming when I moved, like I said to you earlier, when I went to Sudan and I had this shift of mindset that I really should like go explore the world a little bit more, is because I've seen how much it done for me just from my young age.
Mm,
Like I recognize it a lot more now. So now my professional like life, my career wise, I know how much it can actually do for me 10 years from now. The fact is that I did this move. I met different people here. I built a different network here. I built like now I can podcast in Canada. I can write a book in Canada and build some friendships and build a network here. For example, like on my resume, I have I have a job that I did in a country overseas. So now, like when I go to a different country, this guy worked in Australia, worked in Canada, for example. Like there's that experience, right? So I
mm,
just recognize that, like, in order for you to do more, you have to do more. Obviously, in order for you to get more, you have to do more. In order for you to get to the next level, you have to constantly challenge yourself and be able to, take that step, that leap of faith. That obviously with knowledge and with care and with understanding of what you're doing. Like I'm not saying just pack up your bags and leave. Like really
mhm,
understand. Like I didn't come here. I didn't come. I came here with the job ready to go. I came here like I already had a few contacts here. I came here like after doing some research in the country. Like I did my due diligence, if you will. To be able to, I saved enough money to get me through. You know, um, the time that I maybe if something was to go wrong, if like I didn't like my job, if anything was to happen, like if I had to move houses, and I had to move houses twice, since I've been here. So like if I didn't come prepared, I'll be screwed, like in terms of like what I'm gonna do. So it's good to try different things, but it's not good to kind of just do things on a whim. It's like, and
mm.
I'm all about the follow through. Like I don't like to say anything that I'm not going to do at all.
Yeah.
Like starting a podcast, I've made sure that I started it. Doing a book, did the book. Like I moving, like whatever the case may be, is like because I've seen what kind of results it yields, and this might be a bias just because I did move a lot when I was younger, right? But like from 12 years old, I didn't move anymore. Like this is everything after that was solely me, you know,
On you,
um,
yep,
based on
absolutely.
decisions that I made, and this is I think where I am to the point that I am right now. And the reason why I chose Canada was one, I just thought it would be easy transition, in terms of um lifestyles, in terms of language, in terms of whatever, right? And two, the visa was so easy to actually come here, right? Um, and I was originally planning to go to the Gulf originally, but I just things didn't go the way that I planned, and I was wasting a lot of time trying to chase that up. So yeah, so like these are some of the reasons, but ultimately it's like I'm so glad now that I got to discover a side of myself, like just living alone, you know, having to do like little tasks like washing clothes, like keeping my room clean, like making some food, like going grocery shopping, like really watching things here small and there that I didn't really have to think about too much when I was living at home. It's
Hmm.
shown me a different part of myself. I have a lot of to think and sit with myself and learn about myself and
Absolutely.
be okay in silence and be okay in not being around people that I love and care about. Like it challenges me like mentally and emotionally quite a lot, and I think it just prepares me to be a stronger person and to be able to achieve more because I always put myself in uncomfortable situations, and I think that's what's needed, for me to grow and progress.
You from?
Yeah, but at the same time too, it's just like it's something that if anyone is thinking about doing, they should
Mm.
do it, in a way that's sustainable for them, and like don't do small things like first,
Yeah,
before you jump into a big move. But if you do have the will for a big move, then by all means,
yeah. What I'm
Mm.
seeing, what I'm hearing from you, يعني when it came to preparation for the move, is kind of يعني إنه في حاجات كده that everyone does ده يمكن مفروض تتعمل بالعكس, which is people are willing to sacrifice their life, their time, their efforts لما يوصلوا to the destination instead of doing that, like putting in that same effort into preparing yourself to leave.
Mm,
يعني sometimes we're so sick of a place that we want to leave خلاص أول ما جينا an opportunity jump on it,
mm,
even though you know that you're going to have to sacrifice a lot more when you go there.
mm,
بعدين يعني the mentality of I already built something here. By me leaving, it's not necessary that does not necessarily mean that I'm losing all of that. No,
mm,
it's just me expanding myself. So that also is something to me that is um, that is a good way of thinking of it, because when most people leave, it's either خلاص أنا ما عندي حاجة للبلد دي, I'm leaving, and I
mm,
never think about maybe I could use both, like living in both places as a means for me to live now مثلا.
mm,
And the one thing is doing it, إنه بس finding a place, getting up and doing it, and not settling for the plan that doesn't work out. يعني مثلا your plan was the Khalij. If the Khalij
mm,
didn't work out, what were you gonna do? Most people would say, okay, I'm going to the Khalij. If
mm,
Emirat doesn't work, I'm gonna work Qatar. If Qatar
mm,
doesn't work, then I might just go back and see which one of the two has the better deal in comparison and just go sacrifice there. Instead
mm,
of maybe, yeah, maybe Ghana is better for you. Maybe South
mm.
Africa is better. Maybe Europe
Yeah,
is
like,
better.
you can't limit yourself. You can't. There's so many places to look into, and so many opportunities to look into. You have to just do things in a way where, like, and I see, like, with to your point, I think a lot of people just say, "Oh, it didn't work here. Palas is not gonna work anyway." Like, let me just leave the whole thing altogether, type thing. But
Hmm.
you never get. It's very rare to get something right away from the first try. Like you have to always put the work in. And try to find ways to make it happen. And that's what I solely believe in, to be honest, because I feel like with everything, like, and it's all little steps. Like my analogy for this, like, is, for example, like when I started the podcast, I had nothing. I didn't know how to edit sound. I didn't know how to plug a microphone. I didn't know anything, But I spent hours upon hours upon hours learning about all of that stuff, right? And
Mm.
now I can produce a full episode of podcast, without even, like, when I keep telling you it's easy, it's easy, it's easy. Like to you, it's like no, it's not because I don't know how to do these things, but for me, it's because I've done it for so long. It's easy, right? And
It becomes second
that's
nature.
and literally that's how life is. Like you have to just keep practicing at things, and learning and researching and reading and talking to people about things, and you will get there. Like, but it's just the devil is instant gratification. Like you don't want something to like having it happen immediately. You're gonna just lose passion about it instantly as well because
Mhm.
you didn't really work hard for it. Like in الحياة حلوة لما تتعب, you know, like it's so sweet when you finally get to that mark because you like you know how much work you put into it, you know.
Yeah. It goes back
And
to when you were saying, and you love the process, and that's where it is. Then
yeah,
all of the hard work is in the process. You
yeah,
can decide something
mm,
and you can reap the rewards, but if in the middle part is not done the right way,
yeah,
what is the point of it all? لأنه في النهاية you're gonna lose it just as fast as you gained it.
exactly right, yeah, yeah. So yeah, man,
Wow.
it's it sure is like something that you have to work at and you have to be prepared for and you have to understand what you're putting yourself in. Because I remember some of my friends tell me, when I you're the only one in this group that would do something like this. None of us. They
Mhm.
told me straight up, like, wallahi, they're like, there's no one, none of us would do this. My mom was talking to me recently and she said to me, I thought you'd be back by now, you know? And
Like you
she's
would
like,
have given up.
yeah, she's like, I'm proud of you. Like, you actually, you know, like, because at the end of the
Mm.
day, she always thinks, like, that's my son. Like, you know, I want him to be here, whatever. And she, you
Mhm.
know, had her own reservations. But she's like, I'm glad that you're really going through with this. And I'm happy that, you know, you're a strong enough person now to be able to sustain on yourself and whatever. Because she's like, now I'm comfortable, you know, in
That is
you
that
as
parent
a
gratification.
yeah. Do you get me? It's like working so hard all these years, going to school, you know, going getting jobs, like whatever the case may be. It's like, and your parents always do this, do this. Now I feel like they can just خلاص, like this guy really like he
Mhm.
knows what he's doing. You know, he can if he can get himself fat and keep himself alive, you know, for 5 months, like خلاص, like he's okay type thing. You know,
They might
so
call you for advice.
yeah, yeah,
And
so
absolutely. I
yeah,
think I think that brings us kind of full circle
mm,
from being a kid that is being taken by his parents everywhere. At
mm,
some point kind of being mad at them for it to
yeah.
being now an adult thinking back to it and saying, you know what?
I appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah, that might
mm,
have been the best thing. And I think there is no more positive note to
mm,
kind of give this conversation a pause because
mm.
development never ends. And
Yes,
we're definitely going to do a part 2 to see to take it from where we ended here and see where we are at that point. You know, I might be finding it easy then to اسمه شنو? Edit my own sound without being annoyed that I'm listening to my own voice, which I
yeah.
hate. But hey, you know, but dude, يعني والله, I don't even know how to say this, but you know that, and I've said it to you a few times now. I really, really appreciate this. I
Don't
mean,
mention it, bro.
you know, I've been wanting to do a podcast for so long, and it's a weird thing where I've a lot of people have told me your baritone voice works well with radio with Kida,
Mm,
but with the world, and as you said before, it's harder for you to do it because for someone to do it because they think about public perception. People, what are the people gonna say? It's gonna be very hard. How many times will I have to do it? Kida, kida, kida. And the one thing that I think I can take from this for myself is let me just fall in love with the process, do these calls, talk to people, understand, learn things, and no matter even if it blows up or it doesn't or no one listens to it, I as a person feel more like I belong in this world, and it's because of people like you that make it easier to be Sudanese living in this crazy world at this moment where we don't even know what our homeland is going to happen in it. So at this point, do we adjust here? Do we live there? And this is one of those things that tells you just be comfortable where you are and just do you.
yeah.
And there's no better gratification in my eyes than that at this moment.
Thank you, man. I really do appreciate it, and it does mean a lot to me as well. You know, to be on this first episode, and I'm so excited to see where this is gonna go. Like I know you're gonna kill it, you know, because you do have the voice for it. One, you do have the conversation for it, and it doesn't feel like you us starting this. It feels like you've been doing this, you know. So I do appreciate. I'm really really excited, like I said, and inshallah to a lot of great things, you know, to come out of this. The process, and for everybody listening, like the process is, trust me, is the most fun part of everything. Because when you know, think about how hard you have to work to save to buy your dream car, and you know the excitement behind, you know, remembering the reason why you're doing it, you know. But when you get it, it's fun for like a week, and then it just becomes your car. It's not your new car anymore. Like in all of those times that you worked really hard for whatever, and you know you had to like cut back on this, and then for that moment, you know. But I say this to say, not, you know, that it is nice when you get what you want, but that time that you work so hard and to get what you want is what develops you to get what you want in life, because you just replicate that formula over and over and over again, you know. And yeah, with that being said, thank you, I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this is gonna go, and you know, like I said, inshallah we'll do another part at some point, but I think people are gonna have enough of my voice by this point, so we did enough for now.
I don't know, man. For me, this can go for hours, to be honest. But you know, but we do have to go back to the regular life.
Yeah.
No, but again, seriously, the man behind the wonderful book called Words, MK, Mohamed Osman, the wonderful host of the Imbalanced Podcast. Please go give it a listen. They had a new episode come out this week. There's going to be more. Trust me, when this guy gets situated, he's going to be pushing out episodes. It didn't hit 92 for no reason, and it will go further and further. And I'm looking forward to seeing your new base in Canada, how that grows, and just being up north here with the rest of us in society. Thank you for coming. But no, seriously, on to bigger and better things, inshallah. And, you know, to everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the first ever episode of the Distant Relative Podcast. This is your cousin, Amro, and much love. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.
I've been myself, I don't care what you want or don't want me to be. Said I'ma make it, and when I gon' make it, and all of my brothers gon' eat.